What is the flow? Welcome to Philosopher's Corner. I'm John. What is the flow? We talk about it, we use it in common vernacular, but what is the flow? It's a term that was coined by a psychologist in 1970, a woman whose name I can't even begin to pronounce. It's I think, Czechoslovakian name, some Eastern European name. But she figured it out, and she said it's a state of consciousness that a person gets to with extreme concentration where they're fully immersed in their activity and their psychological and material state are perfectly enjoined, and they enter into a highly concentrated state where the sense of time itself changes for the person, and they are able to get into a mode that makes everything hyper focused so that they can achieve very specified tasks and get into a very specific flow of activities that are aligned deeply with the psychological values of the person involved. Now, different people in different walks of life refer to this mode of circumstance through different terms. Top level athletes call it getting in the zone. Transcendental people, talk about getting in the flow. The Buddhists would say, they might say that that's the last step in their eightfold path of concentration. And they're all sort of speaking about the same state of mind. So the flow, like in terms of metaphysical people, when I get into a flow, it brings in the Carl Jung referenced synchronicities. So, and I know a lot of people, I'm in LA, a lot of people in LA, when they refer to the flow, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about a state where events line up, synchronicities line up, opportunities, meetings, and they can range from small things to large things. Like, well, I mean, it's enough to say that. They can range from like really small things to large things. But the thing they have in common is that they're intimately related to the person involved. So from the outside, they may even appear just to be like nothing is really going on in a lot of the cases. But for the person who's the point of concentration in the flow state, they're deeply meaningful and they're deeply aligned, and they actually change the sense of time. For instance, if a downhill skier in the Olympics is going down one of those massive hills, and from the outside, you're just thinking to yourself, how can a person be traveling at like 100 miles an hour and making all these decisions because they're coming at them so fast? That's true from our perspective, but when you get inside their head and they're in the flow state, the gates and the turns and the bumps and the reeds in the hill are coming at them in a manageable sequence. And I say that because the majority of them make it down the hill. So when you're lined up and prepared based on your internal values for a sequence of events that are coming to you, and you're aware of it, and the context of it is that the person is the catalyst and the concentration point for these series of events that are transpiring around and through the person, and they're able to concentrate in such a state where those things meld together into a continuous experience, that's what we're saying the flow is. And apparently, when you get into the flow, then there's benefits to the flow. The benefits being that these are events or occurrences that they do many things for the point of concentration, for the person. For one, I would say that they're a validation of life, because this state is highly personal. It's bespoke. These are custom things occurring to the person. So it's a validation of life. Like when you're in the flow, you're not suffering from all the other things. You're not suffering from ennui. You're not suffering from depression. You're not suffering from anxiety, because when you're in the flow, it's based on values and circumstances and things that the point of concentration has determined are important to them. And so when a person is engaged in things that they value and that they've chosen and that are now engaging them, that tends to be the solution for most of life's ills. Because most of people's complaints with life seem to be that the things they want aren't occurring for them or to them or around them. And when one is in the flow state, none of those complaints are present, because you are engaged. You are very intensely and firmly engaged and conscious of the fact that you are engaged in a series of events and a string of things that are specifically tailored to you, if not specifically chosen by you. And now life is delivering them to you in rapid sequence in a way that, I wouldn't say that it guarantees it's the most enjoyable, but it's the most engaging manner in which life can bring them to you. And then it's requiring your concentration to engage in them. And when that occurs, a transformation of the experience of life is occurring in that state. The point of concentration, the person, the conscious being, is acknowledging through their process that this series of events that's occurring is either of their liking or is of their choice, or they're aware that it somehow has sprung forth from them and is now being presented to them. In the cases of sporting events, it's very obvious, because that takes a lot of time and effort and concentration and direct awareness of. And in the case of things more mystical or just more general life events, it can be more vague and open in terms of the starting points of those things. But when they start to come in, there's a sort of interesting thing that is reported back by people who engage in the mystic side of life, that when those series of events come in, they're even more, there's like almost like a formula where the more ambiguous and vague and sort of given out and forgotten about the requests to life in the universe were, the more that they come back in these flow moments, the more impactful they are, because they seem more special and more random. But when they come back in to the point of concentration or the person, it strikes the emotional resonant chords of, wow, that's deeply meaningful to me. And I do recall having been exposed to that or made that choice. And that also excites the concentration factor. Concentration, which is born of consciousness and other steps. The Buddhists have an eightfold path, and they say it begins with right knowledge, right intention, right speech, right action, turns into right livelihood. Then you gotta give the right effort. Then you have right mindfulness, which is being aware of the context of everything. And then you put it all together with the right concentration. And that whole process lines up, in my philosophical opinion, with description of the flow state. Once you're in that concentrated state, then life really seems to release into the individual. Concentration appears to be the catalyst in the communication to life itself for those specific series of events to be welcomed into the point of concentration's experience. So concentration, pretty important. Once you're in the flow state, the concentration needs to be upheld to manage what the flow of events are. So an example of the downhill skier, they're at the gate, they're concentrating, they're halfway down the hill going 100 miles an hour. Well, that's not the time to break concentration for obvious reasons. And it's the same for anyone else. If you're in a stretch of life where you find yourself having all your dreams come true and you're in the flow state and you're concentrating, that's also not the time to not concentrate and become unconscious of activities. Because you may have very significant events occurring that require your decision making. And when you're concentrating, one usually finds that all of the preparatory work leading up to those moments becomes extremely valuable. And the way to access those abilities and preparations is in the concentrated state. And in the concentrated state, which now we can talk about the flow state of it, time is altered for the individual in these stretches, and it gives the person the ability to access and think about different skills, different preparations that are necessary for the optimization of the moment that they're in the flow state. So in that sense, the flow state can really be one of the more transformative modalities of life and one of the more rewarding modalities of life. I mean, we're not even really discussing the biological, physical reactions to flow state, but I'm sure if we were looking at the internal biochemical reactions to being in the flow state, the body's probably releasing endorphins and dopamine and serotonin and probably adrenaline in some cases, and basically feeding you all the feel good internal chemicals, on top of the fact that now arguably your psychological and spiritual state and emotional state are all sort of reaching a crescendo a crescendo moment of clarity and deep fulfillment, while the person is knowingly engaging in the activity that they value most, or one of the activities that they value most, which is also leading to not just moments of validation of life, validations of competency, validations of existence, validations of skill level, validations of fulfillment level, right choices. Essentially, a daisy chain of positivity, while both in psychological, spiritual, and physical action. And life has a sense that it's actually working for you, and that you're co-creating your life experience in these stretches of time with the universe itself, which many would say is the ultimate aim of life, of living in the body. So the flow state, it's a stretch of time where the psychological and physical and emotional and spiritual elements are all coming together for a stretch of time, and we're conscious of it, and it creates a unique experience and a bit of a time bubble around the person doing it. It can be one of the more transformative and enjoyable experiences in life. The flow state. Well, I hope you found this helpful. Thanks for spending some time here at Philosopher's Corner with me, and have fun. Go with the flow.